Donc, nous avons l'immense plaisir d'accueillir Sophie Decaubec, pardon. Alors, créatrice de la légendaire tequila. Calle 23. Et donc, une Française domiciliée au Mexique, il me semble. Elle a fait une formation scientifique et du coup, elle s'est passionnée de tequila, des voyages, d'aventures. Et donc, elle est venue avec son club de fans et elle est venue aussi armée, il me semble. Et il va partager avec nous, son parcours, son histoire, ce qu'elle a fait, ses passions, etc. Et donc, je te passe la parole.
Eh bien, merci beaucoup. So, thank you very much. Do you want to have a seat? Or... Yeah, please, don't be shy. So, thanks for being here. So, I hope my English accent is okay, right? Well, it's the first time I do that kind of presentation. Usually, I speak for hours about process, and everybody's at the end like, it's too many information, I guess. So today, what they asked me was more to explain why I'm here, why I do tequila, having a French accent, which is not something very usual. So let's go. I would like to bring you into basically the journey of my life, of what I did. And that's why I wrote that it's a life. Well, I wrote everything in French, the title. There's no many slides, no worries. But it's a life, let's say, perfumed or with aroma, with, with agave. You can see from that picture, I tried to remember when it was taken. I think it was in 2001, something like this. So, because my first time in Mexico was in 1998, which is, shit. And from that day, well, I know there's some Mexican here in the room. Since that day, I've been bitten by that amazing country. And you can see that until having a child, well, it's, I brought my French roots into Mexico, and I'm very glad about it. So this is what it is about. So first, I want to explain that living in Mexico and producing tequila is anything but no routine. You say routine in English, yeah? Rutina? Routine, yeah. So it was very funny to try to find picture because I realized I don't have many pictures of me working. There's a lot in convention and everything, but when I was on my computer searching for picture, really with my hands dirty like this, there was almost nothing. Because when we work, nobody thinks about taking picture, right? So, for example, there's as well sometimes I spend in office, I couldn't find any picture of me working behind my computer in my office. So you have to imagine it. But basically, being in the tequila production, every day you face something you didn't plan. And instead of just, being oh shit, and oh my goodness, it's like, it is what it is. It's like in a bar, I guess, when you receive a new load of lime, and it's very acid, you have to change your recipe, right? You just don't follow exactly what it is. It's the same. We do exactly the same kind of work. It's adapting ourselves to natural ingredients and see how we are going to deal with them. For myself, we have to cook them, to ferment them, and to distill them. You have to taste and see how you are going to balance every ingredient. We have the same work. So you can come to Mexico and help me, and don't ask me maybe to do good checking because I'm not very good, but I enjoy it a lot. So here what you can see is, basically spending time into the field. Here it's during the harvest as well. I couldn't find a picture of just when we are walking into the field, but it's a lot of time to spend because when we do tequila production, the important is to have the agaves that are very ripe. It's like in a bar when you work with ripe fruits, well, it's what we want. So a very important part is checking when the raw material will be ready. And for that, some people say, so you take just sugar measurement? Well, first of all, it's what you see with your eyes. When you have a pear, for example, you don't have to take sugar measurement to know if it's going to be ripe or not, right? Or a banana. You know when it's ready, when you like the way it is. It's the same with agave. basically the bottom of the agave will start to become more yellowish. The middle part of the agave plant is going to collapse a little bit. The agave leaves are shorter in the middle. And we can see as well, like with the pear, when it's very ripe, you have like some, or even like it's like caramel, going out of your pear. It's the same with the agave. We start to see, we say that the agave is sangrando. So it's like bleeding, like being very ripe. So you walk into the field, you find the right moment, and then you say, let's go and harvest. So I decided not to go through all the process because I think everybody here knows perfectly how tequila is made. What I more wanted to explain is, well, when we explain the process, everything seems perfect, but the everyday life is all about adjusting. So in fermentation, for example, if the weather is very cold, what happens? Well, the yeast doesn't want to work. They're like us. So you have as well to manage and find a good environment for the yeast to be able to say, okay, I'm not on strike and I'm ready to ferment. So as well, when the weather is very cold, we are going to not cool down so much, not wait so much till the juice, the cooked juice is cold. We are going to put it a little bit warm into our fermentation tank so the yeast then are like, hey, that's great. I can start working into this. When it's very hot, it's the opposite side. We are going to wait until the juice is super cool in temperature and start the fermentation, because then if it's too hot, they're like as well, let's go on the hamaca and wait that the weather is better to work. So it's everything about balance. So as well, we have to adjust. And I could speak about each side of the process. We always have adjustment. Here, for example, that's the roller mill we are using, and the agave were so concentrated into sugars that we were basically losing a lot of sugar because it was going out in until the fibers. So I was there, we can't see very well, but with some water to help to separate the fibers and the sugars, and basically dilute a little bit more, because it's better to do it when we are separating the fibers and the juice than at the end having the agave juice, checking it is too high in sugar, and having to dilute at the end of the milling. Better we do dilute our juice during the milling. And it's just for you to know, why do we have to dilute basically a juice before fermenting? Do you have an idea? Well, because yeast are like us. Do you like to really work when you have 10 pullover and 3 jumpers on you? Being like this, Mr. Michelin? Well, it's basically the same thing. The yeast, when there's a lot of sugar, they feel like the density of the sugar. Sugar is dense, so when you have just water, it's very, light. If you have water with a lot of sugar, it's very, thick, right? So when we do ferment, it's the same thing. Some yeast can handle high density, perfect. But the one I use, they don't like so much density. They like to have lighter juice. So we need to dilute our juice. And that's why we do it when we do the milling. Because as I said, instead of adding the water at the end, better we do it during the milling. And sometimes I had to do that day, helping, on the milling, because we do add some water. There's some water spread here on top of the milling machine. But sometimes even that is not sufficient. So it's just taking measurement and saying, oh, that's more dilution and better I do it here. So here I didn't do that for hours. It was just because I had a big load of agave and I was, okay, let's do that. And then we did adjust the flow, checking the level of sugar, and everything was perfect. But it's observing, smelling, tasting. That's the everyday things to do. So, and there's a picture as well of, so here it's, discussing with, I have a face not very nice, but that's the only one I had, with the sun. But here with barrels, what we do as well, when you read basically on presentation, sometimes you see, okay, my Reposado is an average of 8 months, my Añejo is an average of 16 months. I could just put an alarm, a big clock, saying, hey, it's 8 months and let's go and empty our drums. No. It's like everything is everything about tasting. There are some drums that will as well go faster than others. If I have, for example, New York barrels, well, they will age and they will give some more wood character faster. Then I'm not going to wait 8 months, even if it's written on my presentation. No, if it's a character I like, and if it's after 5 or 6 months, I'm going to dump my barrels at that age. And if some barrels need 10 months, I will wait 10 months, no worries. So as well in barrels, there's a lot of work that we have to do to take samples, taste, check, and say, okay, now it's time to empty the barrels. So there's no time to be bored. Sometimes I wish the days will be 23 times 2, like 46 hours a day to be able to do more things, but that's the way it is. And Miriam, that's perfecto, escogiste el buen momento. Basically, so the presentation is about how I did arrive as well doing this. And my first step was doing engineer studies. So I did biology studies in France. And by chance, I had my training period. So the next step is in Mexico City. What a chance, right? It was, well, at the beginning, I was supposed actually to do one in Brazil. For life reason, it was in Mexico, and I'm so glad, I have to thank all the stars up there and everything, that it was in Mexico, because doing that, well, it was yahoo! I really loved it. And as well, being in Mexico, working in the research center, I was working with the yeast and lactic bacteria, so in Mexico City. So it's, well, imagine, with the white coat, everything in sterile conditions.
Fancy.
Very fancy. Yes.
Working with bacteria, I love it.
And well, I was in the inoculation of the milk to do some lactic products. So it was different from tequila. So it would not have been so happy, so fun for you. But what was very interesting was to learn much more about fermentation, about isolating as well yeast, which was very useful for the future, you will see. And developing that. And being in Mexico, I'm in, still one step before. I'm in Mexico and I'm going to discover how tequila is made because I'm in the country. So I took a night bus to Guadalajara, then another bus to Tequila Town, and I just went to visit a distillery. I don't know, how many of you have been to a tequila distillery? And you too, really? And you? and I'm not even asking about you. Huh? But I don't know if you would share the same thing. For those who haven't been, let's see. Well, I will tell you my feeling, and maybe you will have some more experiences. But for me, what was amazing was the smell. The smell of the cooked agave. It was like, an abrazo, like something, when you go in front of a bakery, a good boulangerie, when they just open the oven, and it's like, you just want to enter there. Well, there with the cooked agave, it's exactly the same. It's a smell that, wow, what's that? I don't know, is it something you did experience or you remember yourself? Yes?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Sorry?
Yeah, it was just amazing. Yes, the taste is smell. Like the same thing when we put some tequila in our hand and so it's the same thing.
So you know where you have to go now, right? I'm not the only one feeling this. So it was, very impacting. But I never thought I will work into this. That was one life experience thinking, wow, that's amazing. And end of the chapter, I thought. And so the next chapter was more. I finished my studies. I had my engineer diploma in my pocket, and I had to find a job. So I did go to my engineer school saying, I would like something not in a big company. Maybe you have some contacts of something special. I would like to work with plants. I was thinking maybe, what character, or microalgae as well, because I did work before with, oceanography. with microalgae that have a lot of property, like spirulina or other amazing alive elements. And actually, my engineer school said, well, there's a distillery in South Africa. They have problems in fermentation, so they need someone who knows about it. The only thing they want a guy, but we really think you should apply to that job because, well, you are the one that have the more experience than of the student for what you did, you know. Okay, so I did send my curriculum, and for the little story, they only took me on interview because, well, they loved the curriculum, but when they saw I was a woman, they were, well, it's not a place for a woman. But as I was playing rugby, yes, I did play rugby, I was more into defense, you know. Well, that's what, I really enjoyed it. They thought, on the CV, well, she must be like a very tough girl, so let's take her in interview. And first when I arrived, they were, is it really you? It was like, yeah. But the great thing is that that's the only time as well I'm very happy I didn't listen to my dear mommy. Because she prepared, she did iron for me, the skirt and the nice, and as you go to an interview, the nice outfit. Yeah. And she saw me going out of the house with caterpillars and like leather jackets and a pan, and she was like, "Sophia, you're crazy! It's an interview in the Lucrezia in Paris." I was taking the train from Lille. She was, "It's not you can't go dressed like this." I was, "Mama, it's a work in a distillery. I'm not going to go with heels and a nice skirt. No way." So I did follow my feeling, and thanks God. And that's how, basically, I did 15 days after, fly to South Africa, and I was in charge of the fermentation area. And it was only for 3 months. But after 3 months, they asked me to stay in the distillery and take charge of all the production. So it's how, basically, I did learn a lot then into like spirit production. So it was not only fermentation, but as well checking the cooking and after the distillation. We were not doing aging there, so it was only white spirit. And it was actually agave spirit. Come, agave spirit? South Africa? Yes, there's agave for more than 100 years there, and they were not really used. So some people say, well, let's do something with it. Unfortunately, the distillery did close, I think it was 5 years ago. But, well, it was basically using agave that nobody were using. So it was very interesting. I stayed there for a year and a half. But I was the only foreign person in the city of 80,000 people. So everything I was doing, if I was dancing with the black guys the day after, I was all the white coming to me. "You can't do that!" Da, da, da. just dancing like this, So it was a weird situation. If someone was coming at home, all the city was knowing it. Well, it was weird. I did read a lot of philosophy at that time, thinking, what is life? What is all this, craziness? But amazing experience, and I did learn a lot, that's for sure. And I was going back at night to check every parameters. Well, there was some cobra sometimes once on my road at night, so I was not very happy to be alone at night in front of a cobra, but it was fine. But that was where I would say I did experiment many things, and I had the room to experiment many things. And next step actually was, well, come on, Mexico, wow, loving tequila as well, and many people asking me about tequila. Because I was doing agave spirit. I did go to the US in 2001 to explain what we were doing in South Africa. And it's where I met Julio Bermejo. I don't know if you know him, but he's an amazing person. I will speak about him a little bit more after. And in the US, many people asking me about tequila. I was, well, in South Africa, we don't do tequila. It's agave spirit. If you want tequila, it's only in Mexico, only in 5 states in Mexico, everything, But, explaining all of this. But I said, well, actually, I did live in Mexico, so I can give you some contact I have. I give you the contacts and do it. You just contact them and do it. But they were calling me, yeah, but it doesn't go the way we want. You know well about the process. Can you help us about, we want, the profile to be different or to be consistent, etc. And after a year and a half, you understand why it was okay. I did my life in South Africa. And I love Mexico. Let's go back. So it's how I came back to Mexico and starting to be, like consultant. I didn't know which word to put there. We can see now maybe freelance, I don't know. I was just myself and checking the process, basically. That's as easy. And, next step will be that I start to do as well experimentation. So what about if I do this? And what about if I change this? And what about if I wait longer for the fermentation? And if I try that yeast and then da-da-da? So many parameters to change and to check what they will give if I will change them. And after doing all of this, it's when I arrived to K23. So basically, it's the way it was born. I didn't have the idea of moving to Mexico. So that's maybe many people think that I moved to Mexico to do a tequila brand. No, it was more, I was in Mexico doing experiments, helping on projects of other people, and at the same time enjoying myself doing experiments for myself, until some people as well came, bartenders. Thanks God, bartenders exist, because they were like, that's good, why don't you do something with it? And that's how everything started. It was really, okay. So I started to check more experiments. What would be really my Blanco? What do I want in a Blanco, actually? Well, I love the Highlands. I don't have any family who did any distillery, so if I have to start everything myself, I can choose where I started. So let's do it in the Highlands. And then, okay, to me, a Blanco is everything about the agave. You have to taste as well the kick of Mexico, because if you drink a tequila, it's because you enjoy having, the life of Mexico inside you through the tequila. So it was, okay, let's see with which process I can achieve that. And then Reposado Añejo, great, it exists. So what do I want into a Reposado Añejo? So it was more like questioning and seeing then how I can obtain that, that idea, that rough idea I had in mind. So it's, so when it's how I got my 3 liquids, and just to do a parenthesis as well, because many people ask me about it. My Reposado is a little bit different than my Blanco and Añejo, but because of all these experiments. Let's say that was the first Blanco I did. It's not crystalline, but the liquid was tequila. Very happy about it. That will be my Blanco. Perfect. My life is done. Well, my work is done, basically, not my life. I'm going to, No. I'm going to put that into barrels and wait to get my Reposado and my Añejo. Easy, no? So it's what I did. I put it into barrels. And then I was testing, etc. But then there was still another experiment I did with another yeast. Because you remember the studies I did here, it was all about yeast. Well, the yeast I'm using, I did isolate them from the agave field. So I went on the agave field, take, petri dishes here and a stick here, and then going on the agave, and taking from the nature the yeast, and then isolating them in laboratory until getting the yeast that I wanted to use. And I'm combining yeast. And there was still an experiment I was doing with a combination of 2, and actually the result, I loved it. And it was that Blanco. And I said, okay, now I have my Blanco, so now I'm going to put that into barrels and get my Repo and my Añejo. So it's what I did. And then every time it's tasting what is going out of the barrels. But actually, after average of 16 months, I was happy with my Añejo. And in the middle, it was good, tasty, etc. But it was not the wow thing. I don't know if you feel the same when you create a new cocktail, because it's a never-ending process, right? And sometimes you add an ingredient, you say, no. You add another one, yes, but I should add a little bit less, and it's going to be more balanced, etc. So there's no a perfect recipe. At one point, you feel it's a perfect recipe for you. But nobody can say it's a perfect one. It's the same with tequila. We have, again, the same kind of work. We do process, and at one point, it's like, yes, this is what I'm searching for. And actually, with the Reposado, Well, you remember that first Blanco? Well, that one, after 8 months, was giving this one, and I was loving it the way it was. It's a little bit complicating myself. I have to create, I should put them in that side. I have to do 2 Blancos to get my full range. That's, if you enjoy what you do, it's not a problem to complicate yourself. Until the product is good in the bottle, you feel it, it's great. So that's why the part of experimentation that you must know a lot is it's a key point for me. And I have to say as well, I have to admit that I'm a perfectionist, so it's a never-ending process. And the next step is about Julio Bermejo. I wanted to mention him here. He's a bartender who invented the Tommy's Margarita. Who knows about Tommy's Margarita here? Yeah. Well, to me, it's a cocktail. It's my favorite cocktail using tequila because I think you can really taste the tequila inside. There's obviously many other cocktails, but for people who don't know a lot about tequila, it's like easy because everybody's like, wow, that's amazing, and you can feel every ingredient. And it's Mexico. It's easy. Tequila, agave nectar, lime, well, easy done, right? Julio, when I went there in 2001, I met him. I didn't know at all who he was. And it was because he came to South Africa, is where I met him. And he just said, I work in the bar and restaurant of my parents in San Francisco. That's it. That's the only thing he told me. And in 2001, there was no internet, or almost. I had 10 friends, 10 people I knew that had an email. So I could write to 10 people. That was fantastic. So when I went to San Francisco and discovered, everything I was doing, I was like, what? And it was fantastic because it's how I discovered the world of cocktail and bartenders. And thanks to him, I can say as well that some people as well, I could meet some people that could know about what I was doing and help as well to spread the word. Because I don't have any investors in what I do. So didn't have any budget, of course, to do communication or advertising. So basically, it has been a bartender gift to me to sometimes take a bottle and say, "Hey, have you tasted that?" So it's what I heard after. No, like, how do you know about Kevin Titres? Well, that bartender came to my bar and said you should try that. Blah, blah, blah. So really, I'm so thankful to all the bartender existing on this planet. It's yeah. Thanks for existing. And so that's what I wrote here, barmen from the 4 sides of the world. And as well, some Kevin Titres aficionados who are not from the industry but loved it, and distributors made that Kevin Titres could spread, and I could really do that for my living and for my passion, live for my passion. And everything to arrive as well to my latest bond that you have in your glass, and I'm going to speak to you about Kevin Titres Criollo. Because I could have stayed with my original range, happy with it, but as I guess it's the same for you, you have a recipe of a cocktail in a bar, for example, and maybe after it's like, maybe I should have tried that as well. I didn't thought about that before. I didn't think about that before. So it's the same when you do produce a spirit. There's many ideas coming every time. So you have your profile, you love it, you stick to it, but I have my notebook with, I should try that one day and that, and maybe as well, what about if I will change that parameter? So on the next picture, you will see, there's some agave that in some part of fields and next to hills, in the highlands, you have some blue agaves that are shorter in size, meaning even if they are super ripe, they will not grow bigger. And basically, 3.5 years ago, I was pregnant, is what you can see here, and I was, come on, all these ideas I have on a book, I should do something with it and do a special edition for the baby to come. Let's do it. So in 10 years, I didn't take the time to do something special because I was always with many things to do. But when you have your belly growing, you're like, okay, there's no more time, and so let's do it now, right? So I was okay, I would love to try this thing. So it was kind of complicated to go in fields and to find the enough ripe agave called criollo, so this shorter size ripe agave. I almost gave birth at 6 months pregnant because, the roads are very like this, hilly. So I got many contractions one night and I was alone in my hotel, a dodgy, a very, very simple hotel that I love. There's only like truck drivers who stay in that hotel, and my name, so I can see all the name of the drivers, and then Sophie Kovac in the middle. But that night maybe I should choose another hotel because there was even nobody at the reception. They let the key. We all know where they are. They hide the key so we can open the door, etc. So, yeah, that was not a good idea, but after that, I tried to stay more quiet, only going to the distillery, and I could do that production. So what it is about? And before, it's about still blue agave. We can only use blue agave in tequila, but this one, because of the short size and the altitude, has a different character, a little bit different character. And before I speak more about it, you should get your glass and first smell it. And then I'm going to let you taste. I don't like myself when someone speaks to me when I'm tasting, a little bit complicated with that, but because I think we all have different palate, we all eat different things. So if I start to speak and say what I feel, you're going to say, yes. But better you do your own impression. And you are going to see it's going to evaluate in your mouth, so take the time to... Do you want a glass? Do you want a glass? Do you want one? So I'm going to give this one and then... perfect. There's one for you. Oh. Oui, avec plaisir. Moi, je vais le sentir comme ça. Je peux juste sentir. Yeah, I'm going to try a little bit. Thank you. Regarde le temps. You have a glass?
Yeah, we get
No worries. Okay. That's a glass dance, Let's share the glass. So, doing the production, I realized that already out from already cutting the agave in the field, there was a special smell to me. And then during the process, it was as well, that is going to be something special. So out of the still, it was all about, how to leave that tequila express what I can feel from the still. Because usually in tequila, we do dilute till, usually 40%. But this one, I realized I was enjoying it at home, and I was giving it to friends coming to see me at home at high proof. And then come on, it's going to be a gift, like something to remember the birth of my son. I should do it the way I do it. I give it from home, right? So let's do it high proof. But at that time, there was no tequila high proof. So my distributor were, when I was calling, saying, I'm going to do that. Sophie, no, it's never going to sell. Nobody's going to buy tequila high proof. And I was, what? No problem. I don't mind. It's not, it's a pleasure I want to share. And if it's not selling, well, I just don't bottle everything. Well, I don't know. Well, let's see what happens. But or if they're stuck for 10 years, they will be stuck for 10 years. That's it. Because the aim was to have only one production of this for that aim. And the way I did choose the proof was basically, why should I choose a specific proof? Why don't I let the tequila decide which proof it should be? So I did dilute this tequila to many proofs and then did blind tasting. And to find narrowing little by little until where this tequila was the best, expressing itself the best. And actually at 49, it's when I was really enjoying it. And for the little story, the proof is exactly 49.3 because that when you do dilution, you have to dilute very little by little. Many of you are bartenders. You know why ice is so important in your industry. It's because when we mix alcohol with water, we have this contraction process. that produce heat. And when we do dilute tequila, we don't add ice. We just add water, so we have heat produced. And if we add too much water at one point, it gets all trouble. We say that when you cloudy. Thank you. So we dilute little by little. And actually, at one point, I wanted to check the proof in my tank, so I took a sample. Tasted it, before checking the proof, I always put my nose, obviously, and my mouth into it. It was, it's even better than the 49 that I did in the laboratory. So it was like, let's not touch the tank anymore. Let's let it like this until the bottling. And the proof was 49.3. So I had to change the label. But I didn't really want to move it. So on the next, actually, I wanted to explain to you a little bit more about as well. So yeah, first of all, what do you think about it? Do you want to share some, tasting impression? Or because we all have different palates, so there's no good answer, bad answer, it's just feelings. You feel silence. Yeah, it's
Magical.
Natural?
Magical.
Magical.
Probiotic.
Okay.
Healthy. Good for grandmothers.
Hey, you should be a marketing person. Huh? So, to me, when you smell it, it's the smell of when you are in the field and that agave was harvested. You can feel the freshness, like with some vegetal notes as well. But part of it is really, it's bringing you back into the fields. And I can't test very much now because I'm still giving, I just had a baby 3 months ago, so I'm still giving breast. So I try not to make him alcoholic too young, not as his mother, but, no, I'm joking. But the character in the mouth, what I was impacted even myself, because when we do produce, we don't exactly know at the end what it's going to be. We do have hopes, and we do know where we want to direct what we do, but it's always like a discovery. And this one, I was so happy about the length and the way it was evolving in the mouth. And basically, when you have a juice like this, you're like, okay, in which bottle should I put it now? Because every time I do the same, and it was the same with my original range. I first had the liquid, and then my friends were, okay, what's the name, what's the packaging? I don't know. So, hello, Sophie, you should do something. So about the original range, back in 2005, when I had it everything ready, because I started everything in 2003 in Guadalajara. And I was in a plaza in Guadalajara that I love, which is the Nine Corners, Las Nueve Esquinas. That, you know what it. And I love that plaza to meet Mexico. There's a fountain, so a lot of time children playing and putting water everywhere. Street dogs as well, you know. I took one in my house, but there's a lot more in the streets. And there's as well cantinas around. So sometimes the mariachis as well, they take their break and smoke a cigarette in the bench or play between them. There's always something happening. You know, I love that area. And when I was there with my friends asking me about the name, I was, how can I snapshot that into a name? And I basically searched for inspiration. So maybe here it would have been, I don't know, tequila Impunidad, because there it's written Impunidad on the newspaper. But there was a street sign saying Calle 23. And actually, that's something I love from Mexico. It's not the name of the street. The name of the street there in Guadalajara is Leandro Valle. But before, it was Calle 23. And they didn't remove the sign from the wall because we are in Mexico and it's in the older house and it's there and nobody took it out. And I loved it because I love to go to brocante or things that have, feeling, like woods that have life. And I saw that sign had some life. So I said to my friend, well, Calle 23, not doing any marketing research or anything. So at one point, my first distributor in UK said, no, it's a crappy name, it's never going to work, so they didn't want it. okay? And now they're like, Sophie, can we do your distribution, please? So it's very funny to say that a name doesn't mean anything. Like to me, a bottle, a packaging doesn't mean anything. The important is what you have in your glass. So about the bottle, that's what happened. I'm like, not ecological freak, but I try to have the less impact of what I do. So there was bottles made in Mexico that I wanted to use, and then I just made them print. I love the red color, you could see it, so that's why there's red on my Blanco. But yeah, it was, what I like is basically serendipity, letting things arrive to you. And it's as well about this drawing, it was the same. Having that juice, I was in which kind of packaging I should put it. And so I saw some people, I liked their work, and I say, can you help me to do the label of it, of my product? And they were, so what's your target? What are your, I don't know, many questions? And I was, I don't know. I did it that way, and I want to put an image on how I did it. And all the question, is it more for women or for men? And which age? And blah, blah, blah. I was like, no. And the life brought me to know a chef whose sister is an artist. And I will make the story short. But it's a French woman who I met in Mexico. And basically, she represented all about what is criollo, no? It's Mayahuel announcing the arrival of a new agave spirit, because as nobody did the criollo before, while working with this agave criollo, it was basically announcing the arrival of a new kind of agave spirit, a tequila made with it. Well, the little heart is because my baby name is Abel, well, my kid's name is Abel. And then that's basically the size of the criollo agave compared to the original blue agave. And, well, a snake, you can see it on the flag of Mexico, is very important in Mexico. And that's why, well, the snake took a little piece of the agave to show the name of the agave criollo. And actually, at the beginning, the name of the artist is Rose Guerrero. She likes to put some roses on the design, so there was a bigger rose here. And I have an amazing team at the office. It's all my Mexican angels permitting to spread, because I'm not alone. It's what I always like to say. Behind me, there's these people doing, in the distillery, taking care of the autoclave and taking care of the steam, and some people taking care of the sticks, and people taking care of purchasing the dry goods. Many people behind me that we never see. So everybody always think of me when they think about K23, but I thought I was 5 minutes, so yeah. Okay, I'm going to close. So basically, there's many people behind who said we need to put El Día de Muerto as well. Well, a calaca, and it's something I love from the Mexican culture, because it's with all the people who left from this world, we will not be who we are. That makes me. But personally and professionally, we did learn many things from people who left this world, and it's something we wanted to put there. Sorry. So everything is about life, death. And the next slide will show you just a last thing. This is a person I really love as well in Mexico. I don't know if you know about him. He's in, you recognize, obviously. Yes. Can you see it? Yeah, great. It's Don Javier Delgado Corona. He has a cantina in Tequila Town. And he's now, we believe, we never know if it's 96 or 97 years old. He still comes to his cantina. And he's going to, well, when you go to the cantina, you don't know well, but you feel super good. And when you're next to Don Javier, you know why you feel super good. Because sometimes I could feel a woman doing that. And after that, Don Julio was saying to his nephew, can you please close the... No, I should put it the other side. He asked someone to close the door, and I say, why do you want to close the door? He said, well, I saw that woman doing that there, so she may be a little bit cold, so I think I should close the door so she feels better. The woman will never know what happened, that he saw that. And that, to me, is as well hospitality. To me, Mexico is a lot of hospitality. People are really willing you to feel great, to feel welcome in Mexico. And to me, it's representing very well what is Mexico. So thanks, Don Javier, and thanks for you to be tequila and agave aficionados. And salud. un petit peu. Avete te che capito?
Calle 23.
Bravi.
Well,
Eh
time's
bien,
up. Malheureusement, le temps est compté, donc on ne peut pas rester tout l'après-midi, en tout cas pas ici. Mais évidemment, vous êtes les bienvenus à côté. Alors, merci Sophie d'avoir partagé ta passion et donc ton histoire qui est merveilleuse et ta tequila qui est... Il n'a pas aimé, hein, il est venu armé, hein, et donc avec des gardes du corps et tout. Bref, donc non, je voulais juste lui jeter un compliment et pour dire que bon bah la vie elle est merveilleuse, elle est faite comme ça, elle s'est fait des rencontres, des heureux hasards et félicitations pour ta tequila, ton enfant, que si j'ai bien compris. Et donc, si vous avez des questions, je vous prie de bien vouloir du coup. Et donc, échanger
Vous déplacez, c'est ça.
si vous voulez, dans la salle
En
d'à
fait,
côté.
faut qu'on se vire
Merci
d'ici,
d'être
et puis-
venu. Merci Sophie. Thank you very much.
Merci à vous.